We begin in the Middle East with some very disturbing reports coming out of Gaza. Health authorities in Gaza say over 100 Palestinians were shot dead by Israeli forces as they waited for an aid delivery in Gaza City in the north. They say Israeli troops opened fire when desperate crowds gathered around aid trucks. Witnesses and survivors describe bullets hitting crowds around the trucks. There have been graphic videos coming from the site of the incident where Gazans can be seen carrying the injured and bodies of the dead on carts. Medical teams said they were unable to cope with the volume and severity of injuries. Dozens were taken to the Al-Shifa hospital, which is only partly operational after Israeli raids. Gaza health officials say that so far at least 112 have been killed and over 280 are injured. This has been the single largest loss of civilians in weeks in Gaza, where the death toll now stands above 30,000 after nearly 5 months of conflict.
We were surprised by Israeli tanks that came out and opened fire on people randomly and directly. Immediately afterward, all we found were martyrs, the injured and the wounded scattered on the ground in a chaotic and horrifying manner.
We went to get food and flour, and they started shooting at us. There are martyrs lying around, and no one is looking for them. Some need first aid, but there is none available.
Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas has called it an ugly massacre. However, Israel's account of the incident is starkly different from that of Gazan authorities. Israel has denied shooting into the crowds. In fact, it says it had only fired warning shots attempting to ease a stampede-like situation, which caused fewer than 10 casualties. Israel has also released drone footage of its troops attempting to disperse the swelling mob. It says more were killed in a crush of or run over by aid trucks trying to escape.
No IDF strike was conducted towards the aid convoy. I want to repeat that. No IDF strike was conducted towards the aid convoy. On the contrary, the IDF was there conducting a humanitarian operation to secure the humanitarian corridor and allow the aid convoy to reach its designated distribution point. This humanitarian aid came from Egypt, went through a security screening at the Kerem Shalom humanitarian crossing in Israel, and then entered Gaza for distribution by private contractors. As these vital humanitarian supplies were making their way towards Gazans in need, thousands of Gazans dispensed upon the trucks. Some began violently pushing and even trampling other Gazans to death, looting the humanitarian supplies. The unfortunate incident resulted in dozens of Gazans killed and injured.
Now, despite Israel's assertions, the violence has been condemned by Arab nations. Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Egypt, and Jordan accused Israel of targeting civilians. The United Nations Security Council convened an emergency session where the Arab nations sought to support blame on Israel forces.
According to the information that we have, dozens of them have bullets in their heads. It's not like, firing in the sky to restrain people if there was confusions and chaos. It was intentionally targeting and killing. And the number that we have now is 112 have been killed, and the number is increasing, and 750 injured, and possibly the number would be increasing. This outrageous, massacre is a testimony to the fact that as long as the Security Council is paralyzed and vetoes casted, then it is costing the Palestinian people their lives. The Security Council should say enough is enough, and if they have a spine and determination to put an end to these massacres from happening all over again, what we need is a ceasefire.
Now, in typical fashion, the United States did block this UN Security Council statement for blaming Israel for the deadly incident. However, the White House has called for a thorough investigation into what happened.
Urgently seeking additional information on exactly what took place. We have been in touch with the Israeli government since early this morning and understand that an investigation is underway. We will be monitoring that investigation closely and pressing for answers. Our understanding is that there was a commercial convoy delivering humanitarian assistance, that there were no UN agencies involved. They were delivering assistance, and then beyond that, we have seen obviously conflicting reports.
Now, U.S. President Joe Biden has said that the bloodshed would complicate truce talks that were aimed at a ceasefire and release of hostages before Ramadan. President Biden also discussed this matter with leaders from Egypt and Qatar. But in a statement, Hamas said that the incident could jeopardize talks in Qatar, and it said it won't allow talks to be a cover for the enemy to continue its crimes. Moreover, Canada, France, Spain, and the European Union also condemned the violent incident.
I must say, I think this is a nightmare. I think the violence must stop. I think civilians can not be targeted. And at the end of the day, we need to make sure that international aid is sent into Gaza and that people are protected when they go and get that aid that they need to survive.
We are confronted now with an unprecedented disaster. It's not the first time, I recall it. The Security Council has to take all its responsibilities, and France will remain committed to work with all the Security Council's members to call for an immediate humanitarian ceasefire, as well as the release of all hostages. As President Macron stated it very strongly, a ceasefire agreement is urgently needed that guarantees the protections of all civilians and the massive entry of emergency assistance.
This latest incident comes amid mounting global concern over the humanitarian situation in Gaza. In fact, aid groups say providing humanitarian assistance for over 2 million Gazans caught up in the war has become increasingly difficult due to the ongoing hostilities and a complete breakdown of public order. In February, barely 100 trucks a day carrying aid reached Gaza. Before the war began, more than 500 trucks went into Gaza daily with food and medical aid. The United Nations says a quarter of Gaza's population is facing starvation.
From impeachments to inaugurations, if it's a political story, we are on the scene. The race for the White House is heating up.
We're beating Biden.
How dare he say that?
If it's breaking news, we're live with the latest coverage. From the White House, the State Department, and Capitol Hill, we know the issues, but above all, we know the players to bring you the latest in-depth analysis on all the key stories that we're covering. I'm Eric Ham. Join me from Washington here on Firstpost America.